Oh, wow, that worked. That worked really well. Good morning, everyone. I don't know about you, but I am so incredibly excited to be celebrating here with the Mazer family. Mazel tov to the Mazers. I will be your MC today. I am Shua Brick. I've had the enormous pleasure of learning with Kira Ivy for the past few months. We've been learning once a week. It's been absolutely fantastic. And it's like dawning on me right now. It's a little sad that the speech is done. We don't have the project to work on anymore. It's just, I'm going to miss it. Where were we? Let me give you a few, I'm just going to do some announcements. We'll get this thing started real soon. Let me just give you an order of the day. First, cell phones. If you have any cell phones, if you can put them on silent now, that'd be great. I think recording is permitted, but not necessarily preferred while this is happening. So please, you don't want to be the person that it starts ringing and then everyone watches you run out as you're, So turn those things off. I was going to make a joke about the parking, but I don't think that's necessary anymore. So let me give you the order for the rest of the day. This is a siyyum. This is going to be a culmination of the learning that Kira has been doing. She's been learning the book of Genesis, Sefer Breishit. She has been not only studying it herself. Something that I found really magical is that she also continued with a great deal of commentary. Got to see a variety of different types of commentary and understanding of this book. She also has made it quite a family discussion, that the entire family has been involved in this learning throughout the year. It's really remarkable to watch and really a gorgeous testament to how a family can come together to learn these things. Which also is why I'm here to warn you. This is not just your regular bat mitzvah speech. This is going to be like a real lecture. This is going to be a shiur. It's going to be quite thorough. It's really exciting. But that's why you have some source sheets, which I believe were passed out. And people should be ready to be called on. There's going to be some interactive components. They'll be learning and a lot of wonderful experiences happening. So we'll have, in a moment, I'm going to invite Kira up here. After Kira, we're going to have a few remarks, brief remarks from the family. Then, after that, towards the end, in the culmination of all of that, Kira will be reading what's referred to as the Hadran, that there will be a recitation of a prayer about celebrating the culmination of the learning and promising about the continuation of that learning. If there would be, are there candies in the end? Yeah, great. So we're going to, if you're given candies to throw, that's going to be at the far end. So basically it's going to be Kira, we can all clap and sing a little, but then we're going to have other people come up, and then we'll have the siyyum, and then we're going to have lunch, I believe, afterwards. Very exciting. I think I have no more else. I think those are all. Any other last thing I was supposed to mention? Without further ado, it is my absolute honor and round of applause as we welcome up our bar mitzvah girl, Kira.
Traveled from far away to celebrate with me today. Welcome to Oakland. I'm grateful to all of you for being here today. Over the past year, I've been studying Breishit, the book of Genesis, with my parents and Rav Shua Brick. As I read Genesis and the commentaries, I paid special attention to the characters, plot, themes, and meanings of each story. Today, as part of the experience of becoming a bat mitzvah, I want to share with you a little bit of what I've learned from Genesis, from the commentaries on Genesis, and from the many lively conversations I had with my family and Rav Shua about the stories in the book. I'll be sharing this with you today as part of my making a siyyum. A siyyum is a special event or ceremony that marks the completion of studying a significant portion of Jewish texts. During a siyyum, the person who completed the study, that's me, shares insights and reflections on what they learned with others. That's you! As a way to celebrate their accomplishment and encourage others to enjoy studying important texts as well. The siyyum is often followed by a festive meal, which we have waiting for us upstairs. Just how festive is the meal? I have 5 words for you. Fried mac and cheese balls. But first, I'm excited to share with you some of what I've learned in the last year. I've now read and reread all of Genesis several times. Each time, I was especially fascinated by the characters and their experiences, the challenges they faced, and the ways their stories were connected. As my friends know, I enjoy writing and reading dramatic stories, and Genesis has plenty of drama. Genesis explores experiences and feelings that all humans share, like money worries, love, jealousy, sibling relationships, friendship, parenthood, and curiosity about the universe. These stories make us think about what it means to be human and to struggle with right and wrong, because knowing the difference isn't always easy, and because sometimes being right isn't the same as being righteous. Being right means being factually accurate or correct based on evidence or logic, but being righteous means acting in a moral and ethical way. It's about doing what is fair and just, even if there's no clear evidence to support it. This is different from being self-righteous, which means thinking you're better than other people because you believe your morals or beliefs are superior. As the characters of Genesis struggle with what to do, one of the storytelling devices that the writer of Genesis used to tell these stories is repetition. Let me say that again. One of the storytelling devices that the writer of Genesis used to tell these stories is repetition. This makes sense to me. We study Genesis to help us learn lessons about living ethically. These are complicated lessons, and like many difficult concepts, sometimes we have to hear them a few times before we can really understand them. We see this in the book of Genesis as the characters struggle to know what is right and what is righteous, and what is the best way to act on that righteousness. For example, Abraham is one of my favorite characters, and in his story, he is tested by God, not just once, but over and over again, because repetition. And each time, he has to decide what to do. Today, I'll be telling you about the tests Abraham faced, whether he passed or failed them. I'll also share a little bit about how his story foreshadowed many of the future events in the Torah. Being tested is familiar to those of us who are in the middle of finals. For everyone who has finals this week, I really appreciate that you're here. I know that I should be studying for my science and history finals tomorrow. I do not have the time for this bat mitzvah today any more than you do. But here we are, so let's keep going. And because some things deserve repetition, fried mac and cheese balls! God tests Abraham 10 times, and we know this from Pirkei Avot, which is source 1 on our source sheets. Who will volunteer to read source 1? Abba, you read source 1.
Okay. Source 1, Pirkei Avot, chapter 5, verse 3. With 10 trials was Abraham, our ancestor, may he rest in peace, tried. And he withstood them all, to make known how great was the love of Abraham, our ancestor, peace be upon him.
Thank you for reading. So the Mishnah tells us that there are a total of 10 tests. But what are those 10? Rabbis debate what they are, but source 2 shares a list of 10 tests, according to the Maimonides, which is the first of which is about leaving his home. God's first test of Abraham comes when God tells Abraham to leave his home and everything he knows, taking only what he can carry with him, and to go to a foreign land called Canaan. God knows this is a very big thing to ask. So God makes 3 commitments to Abraham as an incentive to follow God's wishes. These commitments include the bestowment of land, lineage, and blessing. The text reiterates these 3 themes frequently: Eretz for land, Zerah for lineage, and Bracha for blessing. In every test given to Abraham, you'll see at least one of these 3 promises at risk. These words are repeated to emphasize their importance and to highlight the sacred nature of the covenant between God and Abraham. It is clear that this agreement is not to be taken lightly, and God ensures that Abraham is fully aware of the significance of the promises that have been made to him. This was the first test, and I've already spoiled for you that there are 10 tests, so you know that Abraham passed this trial. He shows complete faith in God's guidance and leaves his home, family, and the comfort of everything he is familiar with. And so, he successfully passes his first test. An A for Abraham! But then, cue the dramatic music, comes the second test. After that long journey, Abraham and his family finally reach Canaan, and God promises the land to Abraham and his descendants. They are filled with hope for the future. However, they soon face a new challenge: hunger and limited resources. There's a famine in the land of Canaan, and the patriarch is in a panic. How can he care for his family with no food and no way to get it? He decides to leave Canaan with Sarah, potentially putting his connection with the land God has promised at stake. They head to Egypt in search of food and supplies. Despite the risks involved, he feels comforted by having her by his side, until he starts to worry. Big uh-oh time! What if they come across some Egyptian bad guys who take a liking to Sarah? What if they want to kill him to have her for themselves? Gasp! Terrified, Abraham instructs Sarah to pretend she is his sister instead of his wife, hoping that this trickery will save him. Sarah agrees to the plan, and Abraham feels pretty happy with this decision. Until it backfires. Beautiful Sarah, who is believed to be single, or should that be you? Oh wait, who is believed to be single, is kidnapped, or should that be wife-napped? Sarah is wife-napped from Abraham and handed over to Pharaoh, endangering her life. I told you, drama. Fortunately, God steps in and sends horrible plagues to Pharaoh and his household, causing Pharaoh to realize the truth about Sarah. By the way, these plagues aren't the plagues, like the dip your finger in the wine 10 times plagues. These are some other plagues. But as I've repeated before, repetition, people. Anyhow, after these plagues did their damage, Pharaoh releases Sarah, reuniting her with Abraham. And he even compensates Sarah and Abraham with valuable gifts of gold and livestock. Sarah is safe, Abraham is rich, and that's that. I can't say they all live happily ever after, because they definitely do not, but I can say that for now, all's well that ends well. These are the events of the story. However, there is plenty to debate about the underlying meaning. Did Abraham pass this test or fail it? I think that depends on how you interpret the purpose of the test. Let's see one approach, the Radak, Rabbi David Kimchi, which is source 3. Can I please have a volunteer to read source 3? Yes, just consider.
Okay, wait, like that?
Yeah, source 3.
All right, and then there was famine in the land. This is one of the tests with which God tested Abraham, our ancestor, and he withstood all of them. And he was never suspicious of God, saying, yesterday God told me that all the people of the land would be blessed through you, and today there is famine in the land that I am living up to the point where I even need to leave this land to head elsewhere. Rather, everything was accepted with love and never suspicious of God's ways.
Thank you for reading. Here's some candy.
Oh,
The Radak says that it's okay for Abraham to go to Egypt to escape the famine, as long as he stays calm and has faith in God to keep God's promise. But Maimonides has a completely different opinion. Can someone read source 4 for us? Please? Pretty please? Anyone? Seriously? No one? You guys are the worst. Annie, can you do it? Thanks. Yeah, 4.
Okay. Know that Abraham, our ancestor, unintentionally committed a great sin by bringing his righteous wife to a stumbling block of sin on account of his fear for his life. God should have trusted that God would save him and his wife with all his belongings, for God surely had the power to help and to save. His leaving the land, concerning which he had been commanded from the beginning, on account of the famine, was also a sin he committed. For a famine, God would redeem him from death. It was because of this deed that the exile in the land of Egypt and at the hand of Pharaoh was decreed for his children. In the face of justice, there is wickedness and sin.
Thank you for reading. Sorry. In this light, Abraham failed the test. Not once, but twice. Oi with the failing already! He should not have left the land, and he should not have lied about his wife. He suffers the consequences of these failures when Sarah is wife-napped, putting her life and any potential lineage in danger. Radak has a different perspective on the story of Abraham leaving his homeland during the famine. According to Radak, the main focus of the story was Abraham's faith in God, not the decision to leave the land. Abraham still got rich with wealth in the form of gold and livestock, and Sarah was safe. This means that the outcome was more important than each individual decision along the way. Like every hero's journey, there are setbacks and consequences along the way. But in the end, there is justice. Then again, maybe Abraham failed the test. Should Abraham have had faith that God would provide for him? Should he have relied upon God's guidance and that all will be well? Well, what do you think? What do you think?
I'm on the, I hear the failure side better as a better read of just this chapter. That
Okay.
had bad consequences, he did a bad thing, and bad things happened.
Yeah.
Overall.
So one vote for failure. Anyone else?
Does Rabbi Breishit candy?
Oh yeah.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Yeah. Do you
Um,
think he failed or passed?
I'm gonna vote for kind of fail, but like I kind of really understand the reasoning because if I was sent to a land where there was famine by God, I would just like run away as fast as I could because I don't want to die.
Yeah. Here's some candy.
Thank you.
Bean.
I mean, I agree with the L because, like, I would be super scared and stuff, but then he didn't have faith in God, so that was kind of on him. But
Yeah.
I would be scared, and so, like, I think, like, both of them.
I think we're gonna run out of candy. Can you give it to Bean, please?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going once. Going twice. Going 3 times. Okay. This is a good example of how rich these stories are and can be read in many complex ways. One more really important lens to reading these stories is also included in the Ramban in his commentary on this story. Let's look at source 5. Can I get another volunteer to read? Yeah.
Oh, the whole thing?
Source 5.
Rambam continued, and there was a famine in the land. Now Abram went down to Egypt on the account of the famine to dwell there, to keep himself alive in the days of the drought. But the Egyptians oppressed him for no reason, and attempted to wipe them. The Holy One, blessed be God, avenged their cause with great plagues, and brought him forth from there with cattle, with silver, and with gold. And Pharaoh even commanded his men to escort them from the land. God thereby alluded to Abram and his children would go down to Egypt on account of the famine, to dwell there in the land. And the Egyptians would do them evil and take the woman from them, just as Pharaoh said, and every daughter ye shall seize. But the Holy One, blessed be he, would avenge their cause with great plagues, until God would bring them forth with silver and gold, sheep and oxen, very rich in cattle, with the Egyptians pressuring to send them out of the land. Nothing was lacking in all of the events that happened to the patriarchs that would not occur to the children.
Thank you for reading.
You're welcome.
Oh, sorry. Maybe I should actually like walk into people now. But it's because I'm doing enough reading here already. Plus, I also had to read all of Genesis, not to mention writing this crazy long speech. So especially thank you for reading. Let me repeat that last line, because as I keep repeating, the device of repetition is helpful to learn important concepts. Nothing was lacking in all the events that happened to the patriarch that would not occur to the children. Ramban's ideas about why we learn from history are different from what my history teachers teach us in school. In school, we are taught that if we don't learn from history, we are bound to repeat it. But Ramban thinks that learning Jewish history is crucial because it will happen again. It is inevitable. and that studying history can help us to face the future more prepared. Take Abraham. The events in Abraham's life will arise in the future generations of the Jewish people, only on a larger scale. 3 generations after Abraham, his grandchildren will undergo another famine and be banished from Israel to Egypt again, where they will face slavery again. Thankfully, God will save them again by sending plagues again, and they will leave Egypt with a hope for a better future again. Did you notice the repetition? Did you notice the repetition? I mean, it's so meta. So we learn history as a kind of guidebook to the future. We learn from our past so we can be better prepared for the challenges ahead of us. Our ancestors' experiences hold important lessons, and we can use the rabbinic phrase, Ma'aseh Avot Siman Lebanim, the stories of the parents are signs to the children. According to Ramban, our actions have a ripple effect that can impact our lives. It's important to realize that the choices we make determine the outcomes we receive. Favorable outcomes often follow from good decisions, while unfavorable outcomes arise from poor choices. Ramban's message highlights the importance of being aware of the link between our actions and their outcomes. According to philosopher and scholar Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, studying the history of the Jewish community can help us gain a better understanding of our past and also bring many advantages. Such study also instills hope for a better future for the Jewish community, despite the challenges that we have faced in the past. Can I please have another volunteer to read source 6? Yes? No? If no one volunteers, I'll have to volunteer. Gila. Thank you so much for reading, both of you. Well done, Gila. The Jewish people's history is filled with triumphs and tragedies, persecutions and resilience. But for Rabbi Sachs, above it all represents a narrative of God's presence in our world and is the basis of our faith, our values, and our survival. By studying history, individuals gain a better understanding of the experiences and the challenges faced by the Jewish people throughout the ages. Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik offered a slightly different perspective on the importance of studying history to prevent its repetition. Rabbi Soloveitchik emphasized the idea of learning from our ancestors and being inspired by their positive qualities, not just relating to what happened to them. I need another volunteer to read source 7. Sefer.
In studying their life experiences during our impressionable childhood and throughout our adult years, we absorb their values and nuances of feeling into our Jewish consciousness. Every Jew should ask themselves, when shall my deeds be like those of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob?
Thank you so much for reading. We're going to need more candy. For Soloveitchik, the study of history was not just about avoiding negative outcomes, but also embracing positive qualities and values of our rich ancestors. He believed that the lives of our ancestors serve as a rich source of inspiration and guidance, providing us with role models in our own lives, in good times and bad. We will read the next story with Rabbi Soloveitchik in mind, but let's add one more perspective before we continue. In the 16th century, Rabbi Moshe Alshach, a renowned Jewish scholar, acknowledged the importance of storytelling in Genesis. According to Rabbi Alshach, Genesis serves as a foundational text that lays the groundwork for understanding the entire Torah. He believed that each story and character in Genesis offers valuable lessons and reflects profound truths about human nature and the relationship between God and humanity. Rabbi Alshach really enjoyed finding hidden meanings and messages in the book of Genesis. He thought that there were many different ways to read and understand the stories, some literal, others more symbolic. He believed that there is a deep wisdom to be found if you study carefully and think deeply in order to really understand it. It seems like what we're doing right now is similar to the kind of work he loved to do. So now let me tell you another story about Abraham, but this time with Rabbi Soloveitchik and Alshach in mind. We can practice Rabbi Soloveitchik's theory as we look at another story of Abraham and see how the rabbis of the Talmud would read these texts very closely to learn life lessons from the seemingly unimportant details. Many years have passed since the famine, but Abraham and Sarah still don't have any children. Sarah and Abraham are heartbroken. Not only do they have the very human desire for children, but God promised. One hot day in the desert, Abraham is sitting in his tent when he receives and welcomes 3 guests who deliver some good news. Sarah is going to have a baby, but that is something God already told Abraham in the chapter before. So this entire encounter is rather strange. The rabbis take this as an invitation, not to ignore the story, but rather to pay even more attention and find lessons in every phrase. For instance, the very first verse, which you can see in source 8, Hashem appeared to him by the terebinths of Mamre. He was sitting at the entrance of the tent as the day grew hot. The story begins with God appearing, and God does not speak or do anything for the entire visit. All we know is that Abraham was sitting at his tent door and it was hot. Did we need this weather report? Rashi, or Rabbi Shlomo Itzhaki, a medieval commentator and my best friend, quotes the Talmud and in his commentary on this verse. Can I get a volunteer to read the first Rashi in source 9?
And the Lord appeared unto him to visit the sick man. Rabbi Chama, the son of Rabbi Hanina, said it was the 3rd day after his circumcision, and the Holy One, blessed be God, came to see how he was doing. Wow, let's see it.
Thank you so much for reading. You want me to throw it?
I do.
Do it nice.
Pressure hit you in the hands.
Where am I? Okay. Thank you for reading. They are placing the story in the context of the previous chapter, where there is a late-age circumcision, and generally is assumed that day 3 after the procedure is the most painful day, which means God is there for no other reason than to visit a sick person. From here, we are learning that God values visiting the sick, and presumably God offers a good example to follow. And why is Abraham sitting at the tent door? Because even when he's sick, he believes in the importance of welcoming guests and practicing hospitality. I'd like to pause here for a safety announcement. This is not a practice we need to follow today. When we are sick, we should all stay in our tents and terebinths until we are no longer contagious and stay 6 feet away. And what about that weather report? Actually, the weather was an important plot point. At first, God At first, God makes it hot because God knows Abraham is totally committed to performing the good deed of hospitality. But God wants to let Abraham take a break from hosting. So, God makes sure there are no guests by making it too hot to travel. But then, when Abraham still spends the whole day preparing for guests, God feels for him and doesn't want Abraham's efforts to be a waste. So God gives in and sends Abraham 3 travelers, who are actually angels who look like humans. Abraham is excited to welcome his guests and offer them water, but he does not offer to fetch the water himself. He sends a servant. The Talmud tells us that this foreshadows something that happens later in the Jewish timeline, when the Jews need water in the desert on their way to Egypt. They will get their food straight from heaven in the form of the manna that will fall every day. But God won't send water directly. The people will only be able to get their water through a miracle rock instead of directly from God. Sadly, that rock ends up being the downfall of Moshe when he hits the rock instead of speaking to it. But that's a bad decision for another day. In the story, Abraham's decision to delegate a good deed to others instead of performing it himself is seen again later in history. This repetition illustrates the importance of personally carrying out good deeds instead of relying on someone else to do the work for you. And now, back to the story. Abraham prepares a full meal for his guests, with meat and butter and water and cake, and the angels eat this meal. This is yet another lesson. Typically, angels don't eat because, they are angels and they lack the necessary digestive systems. Hey, I have a test on that tomorrow. The digestive systems, not the angels. But here, they appear to eat because it is appropriate to copy the customs of the place you are visiting. The lesson. Source 11 shares how it is quoted in the Rashi on verse 8. We learn that a person should not act differently than the local custom. This applies when we are traveling to other cities and countries, but also when we are visiting the homes of people from different backgrounds. It's essential to respect other people's ways of life and to show our willingness to learn about their culture and values. When we take the time to observe other traditions and customs, whether by traveling to other countries or even when sleeping over at a friend's house, we gain a deeper understanding of our own. Let's also pay attention to the fact that Abraham only offers bread and water, but then delivers a full multi-course meal, as you can see in the bold in source 12. Rabbi Elazar said, "From here we learn that the righteous say little and do much, whereas the wicked say much and do not do even a little." From this we learn that, actually, I don't know I should say too much. Maybe I'm talking too much now, and that is wickedly keeping you from the fried mac and cheese balls. Another interesting detail to know, and to recognize as a life lesson, is God's reaction to Sarah when Sarah laughs at God. When Sarah learns that she is going to have a child, she laughs. I mean, it's ridiculous, especially considering how old her husband is. Her laughter surprises God because he already told Abraham in the previous chapter that they would have a child. Apparently, Abraham didn't pass on the message. ? So Sarah laughed. But when God laughed to Abraham about it, God doesn't mention to Abraham that she laughed at him into his old age. He only says that Sarah laughed at herself and at the prospect of becoming a mother. But people, this was a lie. God lied. Gasp! Sarah was definitely laughing at Abraham, and God knows it. But this was a white lie, and God did it so there wouldn't be any bad feelings about it. This encounter teaches us that it's acceptable to tell a white lie for the sake of making peace. And so in this close reading, we can learn many lessons. We can learn to value the sick and hosting the weary traveler, that we should do acts of kindness ourselves and go above and beyond our commitments. And there is even a small but important lesson about how some polite lies help the world go round, and that sometimes making peace and offering kindness is more important than telling the truth. "Sometimes you have to lie," said Harriet the spy. Are you ready for another test? The most memorable, most horrifying, and possibly the most controversial test is the Akedah, or what is often called the binding of Isaac. The story begins with God testing Abraham's devotion and faith by instructing him to offer Isaac as a burnt offering on Mount Moriah. Despite the gravity of the command, Abraham displays unwavering faith and sets out on the journey with Isaac, telling Isaac that they would be sacrificing a lamb. As Abraham and Isaac climb the mountain, Isaac notices that they have everything they need for sacrifice except the lamb. Confused, he asks his father about this, to which Abraham only replies that God will provide. When they reach the final spot, Abraham prepares to sacrifice Isaac. Just as he is about to bring down the knife, an angel sent from God intervenes, revealing that this was a test of his faith. Abraham looks up to find a ram caught in a thicket nearby, and which he then sacrifices instead of his son. And this was the first time in Jewish history where the ram saved the day. This story captures the imagination of every person of faith for the last 3,000 years, and people have been writing about it ever since. This story is the ultimate parable about being faithful to God. But why would God test Abraham this way? The story of God testing Abraham raises serious questions about the nature of God. One might question why God, who is often considered just and loving, would subject Abraham to such a painful trial. Doesn't it seem unfair? If God is compassionate, why would God demand the sacrifice of Abraham's child? It challenges our understanding of God's morality and leaves us pondering the reasons behind this shocking request. The story also questions God's all-powerfulness. If God is truly all-knowing, why would God need to test Abraham to find out what he would do? If God possesses limitless power, wouldn't God already know the outcome? One way I've come to find an answer to these difficult questions comes from a great book I read called Let There Be Light, a graphic novel by Liana Fink, a contributor to The New Yorker. This book really put my perception of God in a new light, and I highly recommend reading it. In the story, Fink shows God as a woman, and more specifically as an artist and a mother. The story lets us imagine that God is trying to create something beautiful, but that job can feel lonely and impossible, just like it can for parents here on Earth. I mean, not my parents. They love parenting me all day, every day. And sometimes God uses tests and punishments to make things go the way she wants. This helps us to see God as vulnerable and is capable of growing and changing, just like us. This also lets us see God as a parent who wants to raise children well and be loved by them in return. We can imagine that God wants us to live admirable lives, not because God wants us to be loved and followed out of blind obedience, but because God genuinely cares about us and wants us to live fulfilled lives and to feel loved. Maybe we can also use this image of God as a parent to understand these stories. Parents do try to push their kids to encounter the world, to grow by experiencing new things, but they also want to protect their kids. It is hard to find the balance of how much to push them if you do not know how it will go. Ramban argues that these tests are not for God to learn something about us, but for us to learn what we are capable of. When we actually do things instead of just learning about them, we can turn possibilities into reality. In other words, tests are good for us. We can read his explanation in source 13. Who will read this one for me?
And God tested Abraham. The issue of this test is, in my opinion, shows that a person has the absolute authority to perform an action. One can do what they want and not do what one doesn't want. It's called the siyyum test for the individual being tested, e.g. Abraham, but the blessed tester will command him to bring out the thing from ability to actuality, giving a reward for a good action and not just a reward for a good heart. Note that Hashem God knows that a righteous person will act according to God's will, but still seeks that person to act with their righteousness, God will command him to a test. But God does not test the wicked, since they would anyways not hear. And behold, every test in the Torah is for the good of the one being tested.
Thank you for reading. The Sefer.
Abby,
Oh, right. I'm so sorry. I spaced. Maybe I should give you two because I forgot. The Sefer, a commentator from Italy in the 1500s, takes this one step further to say that all of human creation is meant to bring a divine presence into this world. When we push our capabilities beyond our own expectations, we are living as divinely as possible. As we can read in source 14. Will someone volunteer to read? Maya. We got it. Thank you so much for reading, Maya. When there is a test, it is a time to be a shining image reflecting the divine in this world. The tests in Genesis give us clues about what lies ahead in our own time. In this way, Genesis foreshadows our lives. Foreshadowing is a literary device where the writer gives hints about future events in subtle ways. Foreshadowing helps the reader to know that something important might happen later in the story. It adds a nice, tidy symmetry to the story. But in our real-world lives, it's impossible for us to read the unwritten signs around us and interpret them as foreshadowing of what's to come. Only someone who is outside of the realm of time can do that. An all-knowing God, one who sees the whole expanse of what will happen, could be like an author who inserts a plot point in one century and has the storyline pay off in the next. Generation after generation, century after century, millennia after millennia. These stories are timeless tools to reflect on wisdom that can only be learned when we move beyond time. I don't have this kind of foresight, but I'm happy that Abraham's story has traveled through time so I could learn from it. His journey serves as a testament to the power of faith and to the rewards of sacrifice and hard work. Yes, Abraham's trials are painful, but they allow him to experience pride in his accomplishments and to enjoy the fulfillment of the promises made to him. A life with joy, stability, and the assurance of future generations. And millennia later, many nations and billions of people across the world know of and are inspired by his actions and this story. Abraham's story teaches us that our struggles and obstacles are closely tied to achieving our life's purpose. It's also interesting to see how little has changed for humans since Abraham's time. we still want the same things: a home of our own, where our children and their children will be cared for and fed, and the security of knowing that they will always be safe. These stories teach us that it is important to show others our values and beliefs, and to stay faithful to our beliefs. The stories in Genesis help us learn and develop as individuals, and as a community who reads these stories together and finds common perspectives in the text. By facing and overcoming these trials, we learn valuable lessons, strengthen our resolve, deepen our connection with each other and the world around us. One more page, hang in there. And so, I see Genesis as a kind of guidebook for living a moral life. I love that the characters are complicated, imperfect people, and even that they fail their tests from time to time. We are all complex. We all fail. And from time to time, we even fail in our efforts to be good, moral people. Sometimes we confuse being right with being righteous, and sometimes we think we are righteous when we are really being self-righteous. We do our best, pick ourselves up when we fail, and keep going, like Abraham did time after time. These are stories that inspire us to be the very best versions of ourselves. That's why we are here today, to learn and celebrate these stories. My wish for all of us is that we rise up to each challenge in our own lives with righteous intentions, and that all of God's promises come true. And may we merit mac and cheese balls. Thank you.
Are you ready for Rabbi Adam?
What?
Do you want to do thank yous for the hot one, or do you want to do thank yous now? I guess we're going to do Adam now. I'm going to do the thank yous and the hot one.
Are you ready?
We're doing some on-the-field strategy. Sit tight. Is that
Yeah,
the
we're going to
phrase?
do Adam now, and we'll get to the thank
It's a
yous.
sports metaphor. What's that?
So that was absolutely wonderful. We're going to have a few friends and family wish a few things, then we'll get back, and Kira will then finish up with hot in a moment. First, let's call up Rabbi Adam Quickfeld, who is right there. Okay, great. So you follow them right now. We're doing something. Hey, Kira, do you want to sit over here? Is that hot? Or do you want to stand off and leave?
Stand awkwardly. Do it.
You want me to stand awkwardly?
Yeah.
Yeah. Part of becoming a bar mitzvah.
Stand awkwardly.
You got this, Kara.
I don't have a shot. Kvod HaRabbanim, Rabbi Brick, Rabbi Albert, thank you for hosting this beautiful simcha and for giving me an opportunity to speak to you, Kira. Kira, your family has been representing a number of firsts in my life, and particularly my rabbinic life. First wedding ever officiated at was Warren and Laura, so they're sort of barely married. First Simchat Bat, baby naming that I officiated at was Meredith. This moment also represents first for me, first time officiating or speaking at a bat mitzvah of someone who knows the best place to get sushi in Morro Bay. Never happened before. And it's a first for you, and it's a real joy to share this moment with you. I had no idea what to expect from your Dvar Torah. That was wise, it was erudite, it was learned, it was joyful, it was real. You were both prepared and rehearsed and also very much in the moment. It was just extraordinary to imagine how much learning you did that got concentrated into that amount of time, because I know that that represented just a tip of the iceberg. It also made me feel a little bit better about the length of my sermons in Los Angeles. There was so much there because there's so much inside you. And I know that you have been living inside of Sefer Breishit for a long time, and it's no exaggeration to say that probably a small percentage of Jews alive will ever study this book as intentionally and as seriously as you have. And that's a tremendous accomplishment. And I know we only got a small piece of the stories that spoke to you. One of the stories that I know spoke to you was the story from Parshat Lech Lecha, where Avram is first given the command by God to go out and seek a new life and seek a new way of being and a new way of being in relationship with God. And I want to share a couple of interpretations on that phrase Lech Lecha that speak to this moment and to you. First of all, I know you like Debbie Friedman's musical interpretation of Lech Lecha, and one of the wonderful things that she did when she wrote that tune was she turned Lech Lecha into Lechi Lach, right? Changing it from the masculine to the feminine to make it clear that although Abraham, a man, was the object of the original call by God, that every Jew, right, male, female, should receive that as if God were speaking to them. So you claim that Lech Lecha tradition as Lechi Lach. Number two, Rashi says something beautiful on that word, because everyone wonders what the significance of the Lecha is in Lech Lecha. What does it mean that God said to Abram, go to yourself, for yourself? Rashi says, Lahanatcha ultovatcha, meaning this is for your benefit, Avram. This is for your good. If you follow this path, your life will be sweeter, more rich. This is not just for God to feel good about having sent you on a mission, but you're going to benefit from this. There's good stuff in a life of Torah. Third comment comes from someone known as the Tzemach Tzedek, who's the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, who says, what's the significance of the Lecha? Every one of us, he believed, has a piece of us that's down here, our mortal earthly self, and a spiritual self that's hovering above. And when we daven, when we study, when we reach up, we're actually connected to that part of us that is between us and God. And God said to Avram, Lech Lecha, go to your upper self. Go live a life that's not just about getting things done in your day and in your household, but living a life dedicated to more higher purposes. That there's something beyond just getting through the day. And the fourth commentator, a man by the name of the Alshich, says, what does he say? He says that the connection is Lecha compared to Mibeit Avicha. You, Avram, are about to go on a journey, and you are separating yourself from your parents, from your father. Right? Now, what God was saying to Avram was because Avram's father was an idolater, and Avram was starting an entirely new way of being a spiritual person. Right? Your father is not an idolater. Your father is Warren. But the spiritual message is the same. That when you become a mature Jew, you were brought to that place by the people who came before you, but you claim it on your own. It is no disloyalty to move in some ways differently in the world than your parents have. And when your parents either think of or actually say the bracha Baruch Shem Tarani, releasing themselves from the spiritual obligation to bring you to this moment, is their way of saying to you, Kira, you are our child, but you are your own person, you are your own woman, you are your own Jew. So if you think of these four different interpretations of the Lecha and Lech Lecha, all of equal sides, sort of like a Lech Lecha rhombus, if you will, is to remind you.
Somebody say rhombus?
It is to remind you that God is speaking to you and you claim this tradition with pride, that if you run towards it, it'll fill you with joy, that there's a spiritual side of you that you have to reach for in order to achieve, and that you are entitled and actually encouraged to go create a Jewish life that is inspired by your ancestors, but is created anew by you, and that one day you will hand down to your descendants. And we're so proud of you, and we're amazed by you, and mazel tov to you.
could be Annie Peter. We'd like to call up Annie Meredith for their remarks.
Okay, you're doing great. Continue standing awkwardly.
Can I sit awkwardly?
No. Okay. Switch places.
Okay. Kira, it wasn't that long ago that it was your first birthday party and we sang our own little version of Hey Soul Sister by Train, Hey Little Sister in front of a very similar crowd. Fast forward to today, where the both of us are still baffled that somehow you are already a bat mitzvah.
Kyvie, for both of our bat mitzvahs, some assortment of us have read poems to each other. So I'm going to try to fit in some rhymes in here. I hope my message will be clear. I honestly think you were the perfect addition to our family. No one would have fit better. You are so special to us. Your gentle words paint a canvas of grace. In your artistic world, every detail finds its place. With kindness, you touch every creature's soul, a nurturing spirit making us feel whole. Watching Survivor with you is something we cherish, even when you shout, "It's back!" at the top of your lungs, even when we're all sitting right next to you. We hope for those small quirks to never perish.
Cakes, I'm so happy, and I like to brag, that my sister started doing theater just like me. Your dedication to memorizing lines, getting to and from rehearsal, and your character development both in theater and out warm my heart. I feel so overjoyed that we have such a special connection. It means more to me than the world will ever know.
Kid, it's still weird to admit that my baby sister is 13 years old, though. And Mazal Tov on that little thing that's happening today, by the way. Watching you grow up has been a joy to see, especially watching you learn things from me, like the best techniques to climb a tree. One of my fondest memories of you is when I get to tuck you into bed, and sometimes give you a little kiss on your head. These times have slowed down a bit, especially when I was in Israel, but promise to never quit. It has been wonderful watching you become the human that you are, and as Teddy Duncan would say to her little sister, good luck, Kira.
It's now time for our favorite dad, Warren.
Hold on. Wait, I need the tissues because I'm gonna need them.
Don't cry.
Oh, it's too late. First off, I don't have to read this because if not, I was never gonna get through this. Gratitude to everybody here. Thank you all for coming out this morning, now this afternoon, to learn and celebrate with us and with Kira Ivy. We really do love this community, and we want to thank you for helping us make it our home. Also, deep thanks to Rabbi Albert, who is over there, for your friendship, your leadership, and an overwhelming sense of thank you, of gratitude to Rabbi Brick for helping to prepare Kira for this day, for your friendship, for the Shabbat afternoon. Namaste. Your witness, Nelson.
Now, sorry,
What did you say?
here it is.
I don't know what's going on.
I have to reiterate what Warren said, because repetition. And thank you so much to this community for being ours. Thank you for having us, for loving us, for seeing us for exactly what we are and loving us anyway. This community at Beth Jacob is magic. And I don't think I'm saying anything that will surprise anyone here, that there are times when people say to us, but why? And I'm just like, I can't explain it. And so Jessica Zitter and I were talking, they were like, it's a kishka thing. You either get it or you don't. It's a kishka thing. And so I'm here to say to all of you, this is why. The kishka, that they see us for everything that we are, everything that we aren't, the things we choose and the things we don't, for the things that we're right and the things that we're righteous, and even hopefully that we're not too self-righteous, but when those things happen, they love us anyway. And thank you so much for keeping us in your hearts and being here for all of us every step of the way. And you, Orlin. Sarah laughed. Sarah laughed. I love that Sarah laughed. Because when things get hard, sometimes instead of crying, instead of feeling the weight of the world, we can just find a way to laugh our way through it. And I know that you like idioms and expressions, so there's one I'm going to share with you called whistling in the dark. Whistling in the dark is when the times are dark, we can bring a melody and a tune and lift our souls. And that is what, Kira Ivy, you do. You lift our souls. You carry the light inside of you in such an uplifting way. It's so exuberant and contagious that you make our home, our lives, our everyday existence that much more joyful. You are an embodiment of joy, and that is a very rare thing. There is a lot of darkness in this world. You know what it is. We all know what it is. And you are the bearer of light, and I am so grateful that you came to our family. And there is a lot of levity in our house. We bring a lot of laughter to you sometimes about you. Not laughing at you, but you haven't.
Laughing with me.
Not at, but I want to say, the poor child came out into the world being told that the reason why we brought her into the world was because I'm allergic to dogs and they couldn't have a pet. So I gave her a puppy. This is true. They couldn't have a puppy. I gave her the next best thing. I gave them a baby. I said, here, you have to take care of her. They took it very seriously. So you're a pet puppy. Ha ha ha, right? We have also laughed more than we should over the last 6 or 7 or 12 or 13 years. That someday you were going to have a bat mitzvah. That's hilarious. It's so funny. Kira, there's like a little pipsqueak, right? And then all of a sudden she's all joyful and tall and a whole person, and you're every bit as delightful as you were at every other age. That's also very rare, to have just this incredible continuity of joyfulness at every stage. And maybe this is because not only are you joyful, but you're also, as you may not know, a bit of a wee philosopher. Kira Ivy, when she was about 5, told us on her birthday that she is not losing 5, she is keeping all of her ages as she goes. She's going to keep 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and add a 6, and the next year she'll add a 7 and an 8 and so on. Every year she says, I'm just adding a new year. And I think that is just a beautiful way that we can keep the things that we learn from our own past, our own history, our own perspective, and keep them in our hearts and let them steer us through. The things that we learn when we're 2 can come back and inform us when we're 12. And you have been such a light in our lives. I love you.
I love you too.
They say that being a mama is like having a part of your heart walking around outside in the world. And that is every bit what it is like to see you here today. Mazel tov, I'm proud of you, I honor you. I love that you showed up to learning with Rav Shua every day saying, this will be fun, including on your birthday. Oh, that'll be fun, I get to learn on my birthday. Who says that? Mazel tov, I'm proud, I love you, I adore you.
Thank you.
And now it's your turn to continue. Mwah.
She'll have some thank yous to thank, and then she'll be reading a hadran, which is a quick prayer to culminate this whole experience. It'll end with a, let us say, a main type of moment. At that, and only at that point, if there are candies, you would then pelt her with those. And then there'll be some light singing and some joyous experiences before we head out to lunch.
Fried mac and cheese balls.
With fried mac and cheese balls. Here we go. Kira, bring us home.
First, I would like to thank Rav Shua. Rav Shua, I had so much fun learning with you. You taught me so much, not just about Breishit, but about life and learning. Every time I walked into your office, I knew we would have a fun, interesting conversation. Thank you for respecting my strong opinions about fonts and for always making me feel heard. I would like to thank the very, 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 and that's not enough berries, special Beth Jacob community. There's no other community in the world like this one. I especially love our Saturdays at 4 at Crocker, and I feel so lucky to have all of you in my life. I'd like to thank my Redwood Day School friends who came today. I'm really sorry I had to take you away from studying for finals. Or should I say, you're welcome from sparing you from studying for finals. Either way, I'm so happy you could be here today. You all mean so much to me. And in one more week, we'll all be able to have even more fun together because finals will be over. Thank you so much to Alicia Rivera, aka the Garden Lady. Alicia, thank you for being... Thank you so much for the beautiful flowers you shared with us today. I also want to thank you for being a part of many milestones in my life since I was born. I will never forget how you made my 10th birthday magical during the early days of COVID. And to my camp friends, those who are here and those who couldn't make it, thank you so much for being in my life. You may not know it, but just your presence there at camp makes me so happy all year, and I miss you when we're not together. You are amazing friends, and I don't know what I'd do without you. And Marnina and Yael, I'm so grateful for your friendship, and I feel very lucky that we have been the best of friends all these years, ever since we were yay high. I've loved our backyard camping, and there's no one I'd rather go on a nighttime scavenger hunt in onesies than you. Thank you for accepting my little quirks and little weirdness. I know you'll always be there for me, and I'll always be there for you. I love you so much. And Marnina, I love your pants. Just saying, your pajamas. Special thanks to all of my family and friends who have traveled many miles to be here with us today. Especially to Jessica Berman for taking care of my mom so she could take care of me, which you've been doing since before I was even born. Thank you to Adam Kligveld for being a great honorary first wife to my dad and for letting me call him Rhombus. Did somebody say Rhombus? Rhombus. I want to thank my grandparents, those who are here and those who are gone. This isn't just a milestone for me, but also for you. And it means so much how supportive you have been, not just during the past year, but my whole life. To all of my cousins, aunts, and uncles who traveled here today, thank you for coming so far to be here today. I loved seeing you come. I loved having you see some of our life here in Oakland, and I hope you love it so much that you'll come back again and again. Annie, I love you so much. You make my life shiny and bright. I miss you every single day you're in Israel, and I looked forward to the calls that every morning on the way to school, and I'm sad that I can't do them now. And now that you're back, my world feels complete again. Thank you for always knowing what I need, even when I don't know it myself. I love you forever and ever. Mary, thank you for always being there for me, for letting me ask for your help, and for knowing that you can always ask for mine. I love watching you pave your way through the world and make your presence known wherever you go. Maybe that's partly because of your stompy shoes, or maybe it's because you're an amazing person. I love you. Abba, I love you so much. Thank you for teaching me, guiding me, and most of all, for making me laugh. I know that sometimes I pretend I don't think your jokes are very funny, but inside I'm laughing like crazy. You're the best Abba in the whole world. Mama Laura, I don't even know where to begin. I love how we have different codes, including batting cages. You know if you know. And I'm glad that will always be in our life, and that I can always count on that, even if it hurts. Thank you for helping me throughout my life, and for being there whenever I needed you. Thank you. I love you so much. Those are all my things. Oh yeah, do I have Hajan for completion of Breishit. Hajan alach minalach velati nashe minan la be'alma hadin v'la be'alma da'ateh. I will return to you, book of Breishit, and our thoughts will be of you, and your thoughts of us, book of Breishit. We will not forget, and you shall not forget us, not in this world or the next. And may it be your will, Hashem, our God and the God of our ancestors, that just as you aided me in completing the book of Breishit of the holy books, so should you help me to continue to learn the books of your written Torah, and of the oral law, and to complete them, to learn and to teach, to keep and perform, and lovingly accomplish all the words of your Torah, and open our guarded hearts with the foundations of your holy Torah, and save for us the original light of our souls within all of our facets, and all the sparks of our father Moses our shepherd, peace be upon him, that you revealed the deep foundations of your Torah through him. And in his merit, and the merit of the holy Jewish prophets, their books, and their holiness, should sustain us to never falter or stray from the enriching holy Torah. May their words be faithful and pleasant, alive and sustaining, everlasting for us, our children and the further generations, and all the generation of Israel, your servant, on the earlier and later ones. Great greeds and truthful and faithful sustenance as a rule with no exception. And may we merit and live and see and inherit goodness and blessing for eternal life. And in the merit of the holy written and oral Torah, save us, Hashem our God, and gather us in from among the nations. And may you reign over the whole world in your glory and elevate all of existence through knowing you. And bask us in the light of salvation, compassion from the fountain of salvation. Amen, so it may be God's will.
Yeah.